The invitation this morning to speak on forgiveness is something which is close to all of us in our life. Somewhere along our life journey, we may have been hurt, we may have been betrayed, we may have been hurt in physically abused. Somewhere along the line, we carry a pain with us. There is a moment of pain. Okay. I'm going to speak on forgiveness. Sorry for the hiccup just shortly. As I said in introduction, all of us have some moment of pain, Just to give you a very simple example, yesterday I was with a very young couple, and they were speaking about betrayal and hurts. And all of us carry this moment. Before I step into the subject of forgiveness, let's just talk about some of the things that we struggle with, understanding what I call misconception about forgiveness. It's important for us just to have an idea about what are the misconceptions of forgiveness. One of the most important things that we talk about is that, do I have to immediately forgive someone, Father? Do I need to do it instantly? No. Forgiveness takes time. That's the first misconception. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen immediately. There is a time that it happens. When we are ready to step into the forgiveness, we will step into it. You cannot force someone into forgiveness. That's the first misconception. Secondly, is we think about reconciliation. Father, if I've forgiven the person, do I need to reconcile with it? You need not. If it's a terrorist, if it's a rapist, if it's a murderer, you don't have to look in a moment of reconciliation. That means I have to make peace with the person. It takes time. So certain people you can reconcile with, certain people you need not reconcile it. You can keep your distance with that person. Thirdly, one of the misconceptions, I'm just clearing the air so that when we step into the subject of forgiveness, we'll have a better idea. The third misconception is we do not have to condone to the Number 4, forgiveness means I don't need anybody's help. I can do it on my own. No, sometimes we need help. We need help to forgive someone. We need someone to help us, to guide us in this process of forgiveness. And the last thing, which is today's subject, is forgiveness, forgetting. Is forgiving something to forget? Very often we hear the phrase, when you forgive, you forget. My dear friends, you cannot forget. All of us carry a memory bank in our head. The wounds may heal, but the scars will remain. We always have the hurt, and sometimes we have what is called flashbacks. We have memories that come alive, and these things will hurt us sometimes when it comes back. What do you do when you remember the pain? When you remember the pain of your childhood, when you remember the pain of your friend who betrayed you, when you have the image of someone who abused you and the person comes before you at the shopping mall. There was a moment when a young boy who was abused, and then he met this abuser at the shopping mall. At once he became frozen. He freezed at that moment because the pain came back. So one of the misconceptions is not about forgetting the pain. It's about how we manage and we deal with the pain through forgiveness. To put it in a very simple way, forgiveness is not something we do for other people. Forgiveness is something we do for ourselves. I repeat, forgiveness is not about the other person. Forgiveness is about myself and how I can move on in my life. You may have betrayed me, you may have broken my trust, you may have hurt me, but I want to find the peace inside me. Forgiveness is about me. It is not about the other person. When I found peace, then I can reach out to you. When I found peace in my life and I've discovered the healing process in my life, then I have a moment to live on. You know, this is important for us to understand how I find peace. You know, sometimes at Mass, every time when we turn around to each other and the priest says, please offer each other the sign of peace. But if you don't have the peace in you, you cannot offer it to the other person. It will be a sign, just a sign, an external expression of what is outside you, but not an inside expression of that peace. And forgiveness is all about finding that inside you. I'll give you a very simple example of a man who found this peace inside him and moved on. He is Nelson Mandela. You know, Nelson Mandela, as you know, was one who was imprisoned in Africa, where he stood up for matters of justice, equality for the blacks. And because of his freedom of speech, he was put behind the bars in prison for the longest time of his life. A good number of years he was in prison. And on the day when he came out of his prison, when he walked out of the prison, there was the reporters, there was the news people, everyone was around him. And they went up to him and he says, Mandela, Mandela, how are you today? He says, I am feeling good. And they asked Mandela, since you have come out of prison, you must have a lot of pain for all the people who put you inside that prison, for all the people who have judged you wrongly and imprisoned you for this time. Now that you have come out of prison, do you want to take your revenge with them? Do you feel the pain? And Mandela said this, I just came out from a prison. I don't want to go into another prison. I repeat, I just came out from a prison. I don't want to go into another prison. Sometimes when you are filled with anger, bitterness, hatred, jealousy, unforgiveness, you're in a prison. You are stuck in that prison behind the bars, which is your own prison. And you cannot step out of that prison because you're confined. You are limited by that prison because of that anger, the bitterness, the hatred, the unforgiveness. And you're stuck there. Remember the words I told you just now. Forgiveness is not about the other person. Pengampunan, kemaafan is about you. It's something that you discover about yourself. And when you have found that peace inside you, you can move on to the next level. But the memories will be there. But you are at peace with yourself. Because when you have found that peace, then you will understand what you have experienced, you will intend for others. If you have found the peace, you will give that peace to others. But if you don't have that peace, you cannot give it. Because when we have experienced forgiveness, you'll be able to offer forgiveness. That is why when you prayed the Our Father just now, forgive us our sins as we forgive others the sin. When you have already experienced the forgiveness in your life, you can step out and give that forgiveness to others. But setakat selama you don't find that forgiveness, kemaafan dan pengampunan dalam diri sendiri, it is very difficult to offer it. To put it in a very simple English, I can only give you, Louis, Jovi, what I have. Juliana, Joshua, if I don't have it, I cannot give it to you. Setakat saya ada, saya mampu memberi kepada kamu. Tetapi if I don't have it, kalau saya tidak mengalami and experience pengampunan Tuhan ataupun kemaafan dalam diri sendiri, I cannot offer it to you. Tidak. If I do it, I will just do it as a sign. Hello, that's it. It is not something. That is why you need to have an experience. Mengalami. You have to have satu pengalaman. You have to experience the love of God. The most important is to experience God's love in you. That is why you can only find the experience when you have the love of God in your heart. That is why when you look at the woman who experienced Jesus' love, Mary Magdalene, all these people at the well, the Samaritan woman, the blind man, all of them had God's love. All of them had God's love. This is a big L. Can you see a big L? This is God's love. This is small L, your love. When you find God's love, you become small God's love. God's love is in you. You have to experience the love of God in your heart. The mercy of God is something that you ask. When God is in you, bila pengampunan kemaafan Tuhan dalam diri sendiri, when you have already loved God, then you will understand God's forgiving. The name of God is mercy. The name of God is forgiveness. That is God's love. You must find God's love in your heart. That is why when you do not have forgiveness of God in your life, then you cannot give. That is why the most important thing is to find God's forgiveness in your life. This season of Lent, this time of Lent is a time of forgiveness. I'll take you a beautiful scene. Peter denied Jesus. Judas betrayed Jesus. But Jesus met them and forgave them. Peter, do you love me, Peter? Do you really love me? Feed my sheep, tend my lambs. The forgiveness of God, the prodigal son who came back to the Father, the mercy of God, Jesus washing the feet of the disciples. He went down and he washed their feet. This is a whole experience of forgiveness. The whole life of a Christian is to love with God's mercy. The whole life of a Christian and a devout Christian is to experience God's love. Mercy is God's name. We need to experience God's love in our heart. How deep. But all of us have pain. Even as I'm speaking to you, some of you have been hurt somewhere along your line. There is some pain inside your heart. You cannot forgive that one person. Just think of that one person now in your life who has hurt you the most, that you cannot even speak his name or her name. That one person you really wish you have never met in your life. That is a struggle. How can I forgive, Father, when it hurts so much? How can I forgive when the most painful part is my heart that has been hurt? How can I forgive that person, Father? How can I really struggle with that pain? Betrayal, when your trust is taken away from you, when someone has abused you, when someone has neglected you, when someone has sexually hurt you, when someone has taken away your respect and dignity, and you cannot forgive that one person. When we look at this unforgiveness in us, I'm going to take you into 4 steps. I will slowly walk with you through these 4 steps, how you can forgive someone in this moment of prayer. I will guide you now slowly and just see this. And if you want, you could use these steps. It's called the psycho-spiritual journey to forgiveness. It's a process of healing and forgiveness. The first thing you must find is the restlessness and the powerless in you. The restlessness and the powerless in you. You must tell yourself, Father, I am hurting, Father. I am feeling very painful inside me. There is a part of my life that I cannot let go of the tragedy. I cannot let go of the pain of that moment when I think of the person's name. There is a restlessness and powerlessness. That means you cannot do anything. Only God is the source of your life. God is the strength that you have. When you find yourself in that stage, bow down in humility to God's grace and say, God, give me a moment of your grace. This is when you go for a mass, when you go for a Eucharist, when you go for the reconciliation, when you sit down in a moment of listening in prayer, you are seeking God's humility and grace, your humility in God's grace. The third thing is you will struggle and resist, because sometimes when you're praying in a moment of silence, your anger is not able to let go. You still feel that moment. It's a cycle. You are fighting against it. And the last one is you need to surrender to God. You just need to surrender to God and say, Lord, please accept me in my moment. This process of forgiveness, of psycho-spiritual, is not overnight. It's not just like today I go and do, tomorrow I'm already free. Kebebasan daripada sakit ataupun hurts. You cannot. It takes a process of time, you know. While you're on me on this screen, I'll just share with you. I was doing a session with a young girl. She is from Sabah. She was, I'm just being open to you, she was abused by her uncle during one of the Gawai Keamatan festival in Sabah. she was sexually molested and abused. And then she left the kampong and she came to Kuala Lumpur to do her studies. While she was doing that, she was struggling of this pain of unforgiveness towards her uncle who had abused her. And in this process of praying with me, I took her through this process. And it was not for one day, not one weekend. It was for 1 year. She saw me every 2 weeks for her to go through this process of healing. She was in a lot of pain. She cannot, every time when she thinks of her kampong, she becomes restless. She becomes powerless. She becomes so painful. So she came to see me for therapy and we were working together. And I said, can you just put yourself in God's grace now? I cannot heal you. Only God can heal you. Only God can bring pain out of that memory. So she began to enter into a moment of prayer. Sometimes she would struggle. Sometimes she would resist. Sometimes she finds it very hard to let go. But I told her, take your time. Take your time. I put her into this therapy session. We talked and we talked and we prayed and we talked. We went through this whole process of struggle and resistance. At last, she found herself accepting who she is in God's love. She forgave because you know why? She carried the guilt and the shame in her life. She said, my mother said, itu kesalahan kamu. Kamu yang bersalah, bukan pakcik yang bersalah. She carried the guilt and the shame, kemaluan dalam hidupnya. She carried it and she learned to surrender it. So it takes time. It takes time to go through. As St. Paul to the Ephesians says, let all bitterness be put away. And Luke will tell us, judge and you will not be judged. Condemn and you will not be condemned. Forgive and you'll be forgiven. This is the process when we let go. Why I am saying this to you, my dear sisters and brothers of young people today, you need to find peace in your life today because all of us, whether you're in campus, whether you're in college, whether you're in a relationship, whether you're coming out of a relationship, whether you're going into a relationship, you carry with you some pain from your childhood, some pain during your teenage, adolescence year. You carry some relationships of hurt, maybe by your parents. Maybe you were left abandoned by your parents. Maybe your father left you when you were a young age. Maybe your mother disappeared at some point of your life. And we carry this unforgiveness. And what is important is when you have found this peace in you, you can give this peace to others. I tell this to you, my dear sisters and brothers, you cannot heal what you do not acknowledge. You must accept what you are going through. Don't run away. Don't hide from it. Whatever you are going through, talk about it to someone. Find someone who can trust, someone who can help you to understand this pain. Because if you do not accept it, it will remain control for your life. And you, my young people, when you get married, you will carry this pain inside your relationship with your marriage. You will carry it with your children. You will carry it with your colleagues and your friends because the pain is so much there. Because it will destroy you and destroy people around you. Remember this, unforgiveness will affect people around you. It's like a cancer. It's in you. And if you don't heal the cancer of that unforgiveness, it will spread. It will spread in your whole life. It will spread with people around you. And people will stay away from you. They say, jangan dekat dengan Louis, dengan Joshua, dengan Juliana, dengan Crystal. Semua mereka ni sakit. Selalu maki-maki, ngutuk. Stay away from them. Tiada baik daripada mereka because there's so much of pain in you. Do you know why I'm saying this? Remember this word. Never forget this word. A pain that is not transformed is transmitted. When you have a pain in you, you will transmit the pain to people around you. Because you have not transformed that pain. It will be transmitted. That is why sometimes in a family, the father and mother, a lot of pain, the children suffer. You and I, when we are fighting, people around us suffer because we have transmitted the pain of unforgiveness. We have affected people around us in unforgiveness. And it's very, very pain. Don't fight the unforgiveness and say, I will put it, I will hide it, I will hide my unforgiveness. Nobody knows my pain. Because what you resist will persist. Remember that what you try to hide will come out. One day somebody will trigger it and press the wrong button. Let it go. Let the forgiveness take over you to the unforgiveness. Because no matter how you try to resist it, you will struggle. That is why today, young people today find it so hard to forgive. Why young people don't want to go into a relationship, because they carry with them the pain of the unforgiveness in a last relationship. And then when you go into a relationship, the first question you ask is, can I trust you? Can I trust you again? Can I trust this new relationship? Will you be like the last person I met, who hurt me, who abused me, who betrayed me? And you carry this pain of unforgiveness. Tidak lagi bebas, tetapi dikongkong dengan kesalahan dalam kehidupan kamu. You are not free to express love because you have no love, you have no peace, you have anger inside you. And when you talk to people, people see this in you. You need to be the wounded healer, my dear friends. All of us are wounded. All of us got cuts in our life. We are wounded. But we cannot hide our wounds. People will know our wounds. Our shame, our healing needs to take place. That is why when you are freed, when you are a beautiful person, you know, when all of you have been a very beautiful person in your life, you will give. Malinda, Rebecca, Karen, Roshin, all of you, when you have found love in you, you will give love to others. If not, you will give anger to others. You will give bitterness to others. When you sit down and talk to one another, you will talk about hurt of others because you are not longer free. Daniel, Cor, Stephen, you will struggle with this as you go on in life. Krital, when you sit down and it's so much of pain in you. Two important things that I want to share with you, my young people, this morning is what I call decisional forgiveness, emotional forgiveness. Decisional forgiveness is when you get up and you tell yourself, I want to let go. I want to let go of this anger, of this resentment, of these feelings and thought of the person. I want to make a decision today. Let this Lent and this Holy Week become a moment for you to decide. For Martin, for Maria, for Michael, and you decide now, am I ready to involve this emotional forgiveness? Change these negative emotions to positive feelings. When anger comes, tell yourself, can I forgive him in peace or her in peace? It's a decision, it's an emotional part. This past 2 years, I found myself with a very beautiful document. And to young people, I ask you to find this document, Fratelli Tutti. It's a document that Holy Father has given the young people today and the church. And the whole summary of Fratelli Tutti is to recognize the other and to rethink relationships. That means you have to look at others in a different framework, in a different way of landscape, and how to look at relationships today. If not, you will not be able to move forward. Pope Francis, Holy Father says. Pope says in this whole experience of Fratelli Tutti, forgiving doesn't mean forgetting. This is the whole subject of this morning session. Papa Francis says, forgiving is not meaning forgetting. Forgiveness is to stop that forces. The forces is kuasa, kekuasaan yang membawa destructions. The one that controls you and gets you into revenge. That is the danger. Forgiveness is to stop all this. You look at the world today, just look at the world today. Look at marriages, look at family life today. Look at relationships of brother and sisters at home. Cain and Abel. You look at everything that is going on in our lives. We see so much of this. And in Fratelli Tutti, which is the most document today, how do we move forward? How do we move forward in a relationship? Take some time to look at this beautiful number 252 of Fratelli Tutti. I've found myself reading this document 2 times. It's a beautiful document. And Pope says, forgiveness is precisely what enables us to move from revenge towards an injustice of life. he says that we must move away from revenge. Because revenge is something what Cain and Abel went through. Cain killed the brother of Abel because of revenge, hatred, unforgiveness. And Father Pope Francis says, this is what happens is, do you know when you have this forgiveness in your life, one of the most beautiful things that Pope Francis says, you can enter into dialogue with the other person. This is how Saint Francis went through with Sultan Al-Malik, you know, a person of another religion, a person of another faith, a person of another culture, a person of another world. Francis found that peace. It became an unselfish, unlimited love at the heart of the gospel. And this is what Pope Francis said in Fratelli Tutti. He said that when you have found this in your life, you can reach out to others. You won't mock other religions. You won't condemn other religions. You won't speak ill of other people. You will embrace and see the goodness in the other. You will see. And what happens is you become an instrument of peace. You become a life-giving instrument of peace. You offer that peace because you are a peace. The peace the world cannot give, you offer it to the other person. You will embrace that person. You will hold that person in the gospel. When you are doing it, remember I said this, the big L and the small L, that is the love. Ultimately, in Fratelli Tutti, Papa Francis says, love will shatter all the chains that keeps us separated. Love will build bridges. It will build the bridges, jambatan, antara satu dengan yang lain. That is all what Fratelli Tutti tells us today. It is a whole experience. As I come to the end of this sharing this morning, we will open the floor to some questions, some discussions, some, maybe you're having...
So fast,
Hello? You will find some moments to enter in. This whole experience is what I call forgiveness. It is a journey. It is a journey. We have received grace, let us offer that grace. We have received the mercy, let us offer that mercy. It takes a lifetime. St. Paul to the Colossians says, bear with each other, forgive one another if any of you have grievance against someone. Forgiveness, forgive as they have forgiven you. As I look at this whole experience of forgiveness, I come back to this whole experience of forgiveness. It is not easy to forgive. There is many misconception when we say that when you forgive, you forget. When you forgive, you find peace, not forget. Because memories will always be there. When we have healed that, we are at peace of ourselves. When I look at you, I am at peace. I can embrace you. If you're still struggling with it, I move on. I offer that peace. If not, I shake the dust and I move on. But it's important for me to find this in my life. Because when I have found forgiveness, I have found God's grace. I have found God's mercy. God lives in me. And I go through this journey. My dear sisters and brothers, it's a process that we go through in life. It takes time. I end up this moment when you find your moments today to pray the prayer of Saint Francis, the prayer of forgiveness. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. It's a whole experience of going through every day of our life, each moment of our life, to find the mercy of God. But I repeat what I say to you again and again. You cannot give what you don't have. You can give the peace if you have found the forgiveness.